Hey, I'm sure many of you at home now worried about, hey, what's going to happen with the job market, what's going to happen with the economy, and yeah, they're real issues. In part, I think it's exacerbated a little bit when we're all stuck at home and we're able to ruminate about, oh my God, what's going to happen? You feel isolated, you're not connected, with your coworkers, you don't see people. So it's easy for the thoughts and the fears to really, to grow and to overwhelm you. Well, I figured with this podcast, vlogcast, I'm not even sure what to call it. You got to bear with me. It's Saturday morning. It's early, so I'm trying to talk a little low, not to wake up my wife and kids and dogs and cats. So that's why I'm having that kind of lower energy tone, because I don't want to disrupt the family and I don't want to be rude. Plus, I'm an early riser and I like being productive starting the day. So let me give you some perspective on things. I've been a recruiter for about 25 years, placed literally thousands of people with top tier companies across the country. Uh, and I've had, I don't want to say the fortune, but in a way it is to have gone through the .com bubble and burst, go through Y2K, go through 9/11, the financial crisis, even Hurricane Sandy here in New Jersey and the tri-state area, as well as now going through this whole coronavirus and its impact. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because I see a lot of similarities between them all. And while everything looks very bleak now, there's been, I've kind of reported in Forbes, that 10 million people within the last couple of weeks have filed for unemployment. And those numbers are suggested should be much higher because the offices were so overwhelmed with phone calls and online submissions they couldn't process them all. So we don't know the exact real numbers, but 10 million is a lot. Now that doesn't even include, and this is a frustrating thing, you'll see, the government doesn't tell you that they don't include people who've just given up. So if let's say you're on unemployment benefits and it ran out and you still can't find a new job, you're not included in these numbers. It's like you don't even exist. It's like you're gone. So it's not a real accurate number. So I think the number of people who are actually looking or who are out of work is even higher. Now, the Federal Reserve came out with a report saying that up to about 50 million people could lose their job by the summertime. It's staggering. I mean, that's just insane numbers. So it's understandable to be worried, to be concerned. But let me tell you about my experiences, what happened, with other past, I don't want to say tragedies because I don't want to be kind of like overly dramatic, but like really bad situations. Let's take the last one, which was the financial crisis. Now picture this. Everything is going along seemingly smoothly, but there was a huge bubble that grew, that epically burst. Lehman Brothers went out of business, which, was probably around for 100 years, big investment bank. Bear Stearns would have went out of business, but JP Morgan took him over. Merrill Lynch, think about it, Merrill Lynch. Everybody would think of Merrill Lynch as, the epitome of Wall Street. They call their brokers the thundering herd. They couldn't make it through. They were absorbed by Bank of America. People lost tons of money. Stock market crashed. Looked like it was the end of the world. Think about it. If you have all these, you literally have kind of the top investment banks at the time, Bear Stearns, Lehman Brothers, Merrill Lynch, all just, if it wasn't for bailouts, if it wasn't for, companies being taken over, it would be even worse. At first, it was bad. I remember being in my office and, you just get resume after resume. It'd be kind of scary in the sense that just you sit in this steady flow of resumes. And at first, there weren't a lot of jobs. But then you find out that in certain areas, particularly, let's say my area that I specialize in, compliance, legal risk, audit, anti-money laundering, financial controls, those kind of areas, they started picking up. Now, partly they were picking up because the public, the press, the media, the government were like, what the hell just happened? What did these bankers do? And then there are all sorts of investigations and reviews to see what they do wrong, how can they improve in the future, and so on. So there's a big need for talent. And that happens with every type of adversity. There are some areas that are going to do poorly, but then there are also areas that are going to do well. So what happened, I think, what I've noticed that happened during the financial crisis, a lot of people had to reposition themselves. For instance, just from my own specific experience, I've seen so many, let's say, traders who said, hey, this area is drying up. There are not a lot of jobs. Plus, I could see they're going towards electronic trading. What should I do? So a lot of them moved into compliance. You had a lot of stockbrokers who said, hey, my clients are deserting me. I just don't want to do this anymore. And they moved into compliance and so on. That's just from my small sphere, but magnify that. So you have plenty of other areas that even though things are tough, they end up, finding jobs, or people find a way to retool themselves and reposition themselves. Now, I'm not going to pretend that's easy to do because it's hard, and there's going to be always pushback, and there's always going to be questions from hiring managers. Well, Jack, you're a recruiter doing this, but our job is really a recruiter doing that. Can you do it? Now, it's the law of large numbers. Sometimes people give you a chance. Other times they won't. So you just have to keep trying. So number one lesson I would say is that don't panic. Don't think it's the end of the world. I'm not going to pretend and be that guy. Everything is great. Everything is wonderful. You go. You get it done. No, I get it. It's going to be hard. But you can't panic. You got to keep a clear head. Then you have to find, hey, are there jobs in my area? Are they still around? If so, that's great. You're really super lucky. If not, how do you find something else? You want to see if there are jobs in your area. That's great. And you're lucky, and you just keep moving forward and go after those jobs. But be prepared. There's going to be rejection. There's going to be people who are not going to get back to you. You'll send out resumes. You won't hear back. You'll fill out applications. You won't hear back. That's just going to happen because people are going to be freaked out. And I guess that's a lesson number two, is that people handle adversity and change very differently. Whether you're a job seeker or you're a hiring manager, some hiring managers are empathetic and sympathetic, and they'll talk to you and they'll want to help you even if they don't have a job, and they'll try to help one way or another. Others are just very self-centered and care about themselves. I'm not even blaming them. It is what it is. Everyone has their own issues to deal with, and they don't want to deal with you. They don't want to take your call. They don't want to look at your resume. They don't want to hear your pitch that, hey, even though I'm a compliance recruiter, I can recruit for, accountants. Just give me the shot. A lot aren't going to listen to it. You can't get discouraged by that because you're gonna hit into that all the time. So with the financial crisis, it started about 2008. Then as you went to 2009, 10, 11, you could see incrementally things getting better. It wasn't one of those things that someone turned on a switch and overnight everything was great. It was definitely something that you would see little baby steps, that happen. The mood will be better. The government at the time bailed out, these banks. They flushed, billions into the banks, billions into the economy to keep it going. And then, it started building up again. I think it was this collective feel that, oh my God, it's the end of the world. This is horrible. To, it really sucks. For some people, very dramatically lost their jobs, got off that track and never got back on again. Others had to pivot and find a new job and do something different. Others were lucky and their area was okay. So you got to keep cool. You got to keep looking. You can't let things really bother you and hit you and cut you if they're not working out your way, because then you'll lose that mindset. You'll lose that confidence. And then when you do have a chance to interview, it may not go as well because you're going to be angry. You're going to be fearful. You're going to be anxious. You're going to be worried. And people pick up on that. Interviewers definitely pick up on it. They feel that, like, I'm not going to go for this guy, Jack. He seems spooked. He seems freaked out. He seems jittery. He seems anxious. He seems nervous. He seems angry about the circumstance of him losing his job. So that's, it's one of those things. It's not easy. It's not easy to say, oh, all right, I'm not going to be worried. I'm going to go into an interview and be super confident when I'm not. But that's something I've seen and I've learned that you have to figure out a way to do it. And a way to do it is just practice. You need to keep practicing your elevator pitch, role play with people you trust, get feedback from people, how you can give a better presentation, and you keep practicing, practicing, practicing. So when you do it, you're kind of on autopilot. So the fears won't be so great because you're not even thinking that. You're just doing it, like muscle memory. Let's go to another one, the 9/11. Now, if you want to talk about a mind-blowing, frightening time period, 9/11, I would kind of argue that period was as bad, or probably, as of now, what's going on with the coronavirus, I would say 9/11 was as bad, if not worse. Then I would, you know what, I'll say for now it's worse. And I'll tell you why. Going through 9/11, give you my firsthand experience, as a recruiter and as a parent of two young kids. So we're living in Upper West Side of Manhattan, and small apartment. We had my son, and then my daughter was born August 24th, right before 9/11. So I had about a 2-year-old and basically a newborn when 9/11 happened. Now picture this. I'm sitting in the office on the east side of Manhattan. We have about 10, 12 folks. And I'm on the phone, doing my stuff. And Mike Tuller, one of the recruiters who's still with me after all these years, is saying, hey, Jack, I heard something plane hit a building on the radio. I don't know. And we're busy, because these things happen right before you have these crises. Business as usual. And oftentimes business is really hot. So it was doing, busy. And I'm on the phone. I'm like, Mike, come on, I'm busy. What are you talking? Plane? What? No planes. Come on, get to work. It's like, and I'm looking at my watch. I'm like, it's freaking 9 whatever. What are you doing home? You should be here. And then, we're working. Time goes on, and then you start hearing calls from people, friends, family you hear about, and they're like, hey, do you hear about what's happening? And you gotta put this into perspective, that back then, everyone didn't have a cell phone, you didn't have a smartphone, the internet wasn't what it was now, so the information didn't flow like it did now. Now you know everything instantaneously, then you didn't. So we figured, this is for real. We go downstairs, there was a bar, on the ground level. They had the TV on, had some beers, watching the TV, and you literally saw before your eyes the Twin Towers just crumbling down. It was one of those things when you see something and you know it's happening, but you can't believe it's happening. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and a place called Canarsie, and from my neighborhood, on a sunny, nice, clear day, I could actually see the towers. So, from being a kid, that was kind of an icon, that symbolized to me that even though Brooklyn is part of New York City, it wasn't the hipster place, cool place to live that it is now. It was kind of a lower socioeconomic area where I live. And so the aspiration was, hey, you want to be in Manhattan? That's fantastic. So seeing those buildings fall, it was shocking. It was frightening. And we're watching it. We were all looking at each other kind of white as ghosts, thinking, what the hell is going to happen? We decided, hey, let's get our stuff, go home to our families, and put on the TV, see what's happening. Again, it's not like you're not looking at your phone. You're not, there wasn't all that stuff that we really are comfortable with now. So I'm walking across town through Central Park, and it was bizarre because it was a beautiful day. The sun was shining, the skies were blue, and you see people just on in Central Park, rollerblading, soaking in the sun, and you're like, wait, is this I don't get it. I just saw buildings come down, and they're just, what's up? Get out from Central Park, and then you start seeing people covered in white like ghosts. And again, you see things. In hindsight, you understand, but at the time, you can't process it. So the people just all in white, and you see people like that, and it was an eerie kind of quiet. People were walking around stunned. And it was almost like out of a really bad, apocalyptic dystopian future movie. Finally get home, and then, you start getting more calls, you're watching the news, and you realize what's happening. We're watching, the news, seeing buildings adjacent to the tower and other areas also falling down. And I'm thinking, oh my God, these are places where people work. Where am I going to place people? I, kind of open up the window and you could smell everything. You could smell the dirt, the dust, the debris, the fire, the smoke, and quickly shutting it because I had a newborn baby there and a young son. And you have this feeling like, wow, this is the end of everything. What's going to happen? Then you start hearing, and at the time, just so you know that I'm not being insensitive, at that time, no one believed people were in the buildings. You just assumed they all came down out of the building and were safe. So you just thought the buildings fell. You didn't think people were in there. That didn't even occur. In fact, for weeks afterwards, you would see posters on telephone poles and other places saying, hey, have you seen Jack Kelly? Have you seen Sue? Bob? Because everybody thought, oh yeah, people got out and they probably just were sent to hospitals to be taken care of. And it was just such turmoil that no one knew what hospital they were in. There is absolutely no idea that, they perished. So as that realization comes, now picture this. This is why I'm saying I think at that time it's probably worse. So now it was a terrorist attack where planes crash into the World Trade Center, which is, for the rest of the country, I'm not sure if you could appreciate how much that was a symbol of New York and the economy and the stock market and everything, good, I guess, or some could say bad, that we embody. And just boom, destroyed. And thousands of people died. And once that realization hit, it was shocking. We go back into the office a few days later, if nothing else, just to commiserate with one another, like what's going on? There were real fears for days, weeks, months afterwards that this would happen again. For those who aren't there or young, you may not know this, but you had codes. It would be like a code, I can't remember what stands for each one. Code red for this means, okay, we might have a terrorist attack. Code such and such, well, not so bad. So every day you had to wake up thinking, hey, there might be another terrorist attack. For about 2 or 3 years, maybe longer afterwards, there's definitely a field where people wouldn't go to work, say, rumors would fly that, hey, if you go in, there's going to be another terrorist attack and people stay home. So imagine going through that, right, where thousands of Americans died. And I'm just talking about New York. Planes crashed into the Pentagon, the plane went down in Pennsylvania. So I don't want to dismiss that. I'm just talking from my own personal firsthand recollection of things. So now, think about this. I also started my search firm, Compliance Search, at the time. So I started a new business. I have 2 young kids at home. People have died. All the companies I deal with, because I place people in the financial industry, and at that time, it was all clustered in New York. Now they moved everywhere. They went from New York to Jersey City to then Dallas, Florida, Salt Lake City, India, Ireland. Now you look, more jobs are out of New York than in it. And it was just downtown. Then, I should even say they moved to Midtown and then New Jersey and so on. So at that time, it was really clustered for the most part downtown, and that was just devastating. So it took months and months for people to now we work at home and you go on Zoom and you communicate with coworkers. You didn't really have that. So you'd set people up in kind of these makeshift offices at other locations, and it was a long time till it got back to normal. People, I don't know, I can't recall the number, but so many people lost their jobs. So many people lost their livelihoods. People lost their lives. People were in fear. I think it's hard to comprehend even now, kind of, 20 years removed from it, or, a lot, under 20 years removed from it. Like, that's mind-blowing that we were attacked, buildings were destroyed, people died, and we had to every day wake up and just try to be normal. Now, the coronavirus is bad and it's scary. But imagine going back and living through worried about another terrorist attack somewhere where you're going to get blown up. I mean, it's once again, to use that analogy, it's like out of a really bad, futuristic horror type of movie. But we prevailed, at the time. Just like I thought with the financial crisis, like, how the hell do we get out of this? How do we, it's all over. But somehow the wheels start moving again. People start getting jobs, companies hire, business improves, the mood improves. As we get further away from, the date of it happening, our collective memories try to suppress it and then just be more positive and move on. And I think that's really the key. And I think I can only speak to my circumstance of being an American and for most of my life being kind of a New Yorker or living in the New York area, is that there's a certain resiliency we have. There's certain creativity, innovation that Americans have. Lately it's been very open to being knocking capitalism, and it definitely has its flaws. But I think the unique combination that America has, where you have really smart people, creative people, and we're such a diverse group. There's a lot in politics lately which pits groups against each other, but I think that's a mistake, because by having all these people from different countries, different ideologies, different religions, different, coming all together, that the sum is greater than the parts. So 1 and 1 makes 5, because we don't have this one linear way of thinking, this one type of person in this country. We have so many different people with so many different ideas. So it really sparks creativity, innovation. And then with capitalism, it's that drive to be the one to say, hey, if I could come up with a solution to something, I'm going to do really super well. I'm going to be a hero, but I'm also going to get wealthy in the process. Which is fine, because if you're helping people and you're making things happen. So I think the combination, but what I've seen both with the after effects of 9/11 and with the financial crisis, is that somehow, some way, it's in our blood here, being Americans, that we're able to take it on the chin. We're able to get our asses kicked. We're able to go through really brutal times, brush it off, and then say, hey, you know what? We're going to soldier through it. We're going to survive. We're going to thrive. We're going to make it happen. And we did in those instances. Now, I'm too young to remember World War I, believe it or not. I'm too young to remember World War I, World War II, the Civil War, the Vietnam War, the Korean War, Spanish-American War, all these other things, the Great Depression. There are a lot of stuff that we went through, a lot of horrible stuff. And every time, we're able to come back bigger and better than ever. I'll give you another smaller examples too. Hurricane Sandy. Here in New Jersey, you had this hurricane. I can't remember how many years ago it was, but it just ravaged large parts of it. I being the psycho I am, tried going into Manhattan to work, because I moved to New Jersey, get there. Took hours, just couldn't do it, had to turn around, try it again, took hours. I remember then say, okay, now I'll go take a train, standing in, going through, rain and freezing weather, and I'm waiting in this crowded, train, and it's not coming, and they're canceled, but figuring out I still gotta go, because you really didn't have that work at home thing that we do now. And everything stopped. Recruiting stopped, people weren't hiring, and maybe it was only for a couple of weeks. It seemed like forever, but only a couple of weeks that everything stopped. But then, you know what? In my neighborhood, you cleaned up the mess. We have these huge trees, these huge beautiful trees. I live in a town called Westfield, and it's known for having these great beautiful trees. Boom, just a lot of them demolished, houses wrecked. People lost jobs because business was bad in New Jersey, particularly, let's say, on the Jersey Shore. Time goes on, we clean up, we fix up. Unfortunately, some people lost businesses, some people lost jobs, but then new jobs were created, new business were created, and it moves forward. And these things constantly happen. I remember with Y2K, You know, everyone was worried when it goes to the year 2000, the computers weren't set up, right? So planes would fall out of the air, everything would fall apart, and there's just a panic. Nah, we figured it out. We figured it out. No, nothing terrible happened. So the reason I'm giving this backstory is this. Right now, if you're looking for a job during this corona period, and I have no idea how long it's going to last, it could be a month, it could be 6 months, it could be a year or two. Because I don't think there's going to be a thing where all of a sudden someone waves a flag and says, yep, we're all done. Last person who had it passed away and that was it. Close that chapter in that book. We're fine. Everything is great. Everything is normal. I personally think, and I'm not a scientist or etymologist because I don't even know how to pronounce that word, whatever it is. so I can't talk to that. But I can say that, it's from a logic perspective, it's going to be hard to say, okay, now we're good. Everyone back to work. I think Dr. Fauci, Dr. Birx, who are, with Trump in all these different, daily briefings, they're not going to say, yeah, we're completely clear. They're scientists, they're doctors, they're medical professionals. They aren't looking at the economy. They're just looking at, the health ramifications. So they're going to kind of wait as long as they can to say, hey, we're not giving the okay sign until we're absolutely sure. And who knows? When are you absolutely sure of anything? When are you absolutely sure the last person contracted coronavirus? It could take a super long time. So you have to be prepared for the time period, but then also afterwards, like with 9/11, with the financial crisis, it didn't snap back overnight. It took months and months and sometimes years to really get back and just catch up, let alone get ahead. So I maintain we're going to have this similar situation with the coronavirus, is that initially, and we're going through this now, there's fear, there's anger, there are job losses, there's panic. So what happens is companies put on hiring freezes, they lay off, particularly now because the government is making companies shut down. So restaurants are closed, supermarkets, well, non-essential places are closed, music venues, sports, and so on. So you have all these people out of work. Planes aren't flying, people aren't taking trips, people aren't buying homes. So it's a domino effect. So you have to be prepared that for the short term, it's going to be brutal looking for a job. It's going to be really rough. Think about it. If you're an HR person working at ABC Corporation and your company is A, going to have hiring freezes, and B, laying off people, you're going to think, well, what's that mean for me? Because if we're not hiring and laying off, they may not need me and I might be laid off. So they might not be so receptive when you send your resume and call and say, hey, can you help me? Because they're worried about their own job. And I'm not even saying that to be casting any aspersions on them. It's just human nature. They're going to be worried. If you send your resume to a recruiter, that recruiter is probably thinking, why are you sending me a resume? There are no jobs. What am I going to do? And they're probably worried about their own livelihood. Because to be transparent, both during 9/11 and financial crisis, I was thinking, all right, is that the end? Both times I thought, well, what? I had a good run. I did really well. I helped a lot of people, got them great jobs, had them, helped them with creating better lives for themselves and their family, making more money, and getting away from a bad boss. And I really loved it. And I said, oh my God, both times, maybe it's over. So that feeling is going to permeate here. Is this it? Is this the end? Is my run over? And from the two big examples with the financial crisis and 9/11, you know what? No, it's not. It seemed like that both times. And as I mentioned, I kind of, for now, go on record, seeing at least my personal experience seeing it through 9/11 seemed way worse. And then I got to tell you, the financial crisis, even though people didn't die from a virus, from an outbreak, there was fear, there was anger, there was bitterness, there was resentfulness. Jobs were lost. The stock market cratered. People lost fortunes of money. Average people who had money saved in retirement accounts. The joke was, hey, my 401k is a 201k now. And it was really dreadful. So it, we were able to get through it. And I think what happens now is the same. It's going to be tough. You're going to send out resumes you won't hear back. You'll call up people to network, people who you've helped in the past, and they're not going to get back to you. You can try to get in touch with HR, internal hiring people and recruiters. They're not going to get back. But you can't give up. You can't get discouraged. Or let me just put it this way. You can get discouraged, but you can't let it get you down. You can't let it beat you down. You can't let it defeat you. That's the thing. You have to say, you know what? F it. I'm going to send a resume again. I'm going to call again. I'm going to email again. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get that job, and I'm going to keep trying, but knowing that I'm going to be up against it. Knowing that the odds are substantially against it. Now, that at face value might sound negative, but it's not. It's actually uplifting, and it's uplifting because of this. Because if I'm going to go into it, and there's a good chance nothing's going to happen, I'm going to be treated rudely, shabbily, that's okay, because then all right, it's not me. It's not something I did wrong. It's not something, I don't have a black cloud over my head. I didn't have somebody badmouth me. It's just, this is the circumstances. I'm going in knowing that. So if it doesn't work, okay, I expect it. But if it does work, then you're like, yes, great, perfect. You know what I mean? So have that mindset of, it's going to be tough for the foreseeable future. It's going to be brutal. You won't get responses for your emails, for your applications online, for your calls, for your texts. But you got to keep moving forward. You got to have that thick skin, that tough mindset, that tough emotional outlook, that ability to withstand body blows, but keep on going. And of course, it's not easy, but there's no alternative. There is an alternative. You could put the covers over your head, stay in bed, and that's it. But that's not an answer. So I would suggest this. We've been through some really rough times in let's say, in my memory. For people older than me, they could cite other examples. But within modern history, at least two brutal times. Both instances, which were pretty horrific, we bounced back. And I think the bottom line to get through it, what I've seen for myself, for the people around me, for the people I placed, is that they didn't give up. They didn't let it get them. They didn't let themselves get destroyed, no matter how bad it got. They tried to find, hey, if in my current area their jobs, that's great. If not, how can I pivot and do something else? How can I reinvent myself? Maybe going back to school to get another degree. Maybe starting a business. These are the times you could look at it two ways. You could look at it like it's, oh my God, this is horrible, and just feel bad. Or you could say, you know what, screw it. I'm going to find a way to get meaning out of this. And I'm going to try something. And I'm going to try to make something better. Maybe, you know what, maybe I didn't like being a tax accountant. And maybe losing my job is the best thing, because I've always wanted to open up a fill in the blank. And that was the kick in the pants they needed to do that. Maybe they always said, you know what, I always wanted to do something meaningful. I was a stockbroker, and I didn't really, I made a lot of money, but I didn't really feel that I had a purpose. I always wanted to be a teacher. Great. Maybe this is what you needed to go back to school and become a teacher. So if you look at things through the lens of not how bad it is, how unfortunate I am that this happened to me, but look at through the lens of, hey, this happened, I can't change it. But what I can do is say, how can I take this new situation I'm thrust in and make the best of it? That could be looking for a new job, and as I mentioned, understanding it won't be easy, but it'll happen if you keep trying. And it may not happen today, it may not happen next month, it may not happen to 6 months, it may not happen in a year. And that's rough, but be prepared. You might want to take a gig job on the side. You want to volunteer for stuff and find other things to fill up your day or to get some money in. But be prepared. It might take a long time, but I believe it'll happen, because I've seen it happen on several occasions that it did happen. And I don't think why this would be anything else. In fact, I would think good case scenario is this. A lot of the problems now could quickly change. So many people are out of work because, let's say, a restaurant closes. But once the restaurant opens and people are allowed to go back out of their house, I think there's going to be a pent-up demand. You want to go out, you want to get a nice meal, you want to see other people, you want to see a basketball game, you want to see a baseball game, you want to see a football game, you want to see a music concert. You know what? You just want to get the hell out of, wherever you live. You want to get out of New York or New Jersey and go somewhere warm and go on a plane trip and stay at a nice hotel, change the scenery. Now, that won't happen overnight either, because what's going to happen is that people are still going to be scared to get out of the house and go to crowded places, but over time. So I think you have to look at it as, hey, I'm not going to get discouraged. I'm going to look and see if I can get jobs in my space. If I can't get jobs in my space, kind of reinvent myself, pivot to something else, try something different, maybe go back to school, maybe start a business, maybe get a part-time job to fill in, get some extra money while you're figuring shit out and what to do next. Stay mentally strong, emotionally strong, and then look at it as this is a marathon. This is not a race. This is not a sprint. This is going to take a long time, and you have to pace yourself, and you can't let yourself get really scared and frustrated and give up if it doesn't happen in a week, in a month, in 2 months, in 6 months, in a year. And I know you're all saying, Jack, yeah, easy for you to say, but I'm doing it myself. Think about it. As a person who built up a recruiting firm, it's not the best place to be in. I launched a startup, WeCruitr, which is a platform to connect job seekers with recruiters and other members. Think about it. It's not probably the best model now, where recruiters are hiding under their desk, and I can't blame them, because they're like, I don't have any jobs. I can't speak to people all day long, because what am I going to tell them? So I'm going through it too. And I say the same thing I'm saying here is what I say to myself. And that, you have to stay focused, stay strong, stay motivated, don't give up, and keep trying. And that's, I think, the messages that I've seen, what happened in the past and what you need to do moving forward with your career. And hey, if you ever want someone to talk to, or you want to bounce ideas off, or need a sounding board, feel free to get in touch with me. It's Jack Kelly, 212-997-5061, and jack@WeCruitr.com, WeCruitr.com. Thank you for listening. I hope it was of some measure of help. Thanks.